be me. 28, single for the first time in my adult life, freshly out of a 5-year relationship with the man everyone thought I'd marry. Ethan and I met at a local university orientation event. I was 21 and double majoring in marketing. He was 23, working part-time and studying mechanical engineering. I remember he offered me the last seat in the back row of the auditorium and made some dry joke about the speaker's beige PowerPoint. I laughed, and we talked the whole walk back to campus. What drew me in was how grounded he was. I came from a divorced home. Dad cheated, Mom was the big man in the house for years. I guess that whole incident didn't make her the most fond of men and marriage too. So when Ethan would show up early to pick me up, always paid for dinner, walked me home, remembered the tiniest things I said. It felt like safety, a quiet, stable kind of care. The type of man who keeps his promises even when no one's looking. We moved in together after a year. By then, I had joined a few student orgs, Women in Policy, Voices for Choice, stuff like that. He supported me, didn't always get it, but listened when I vented about male professors talking over me. He wasn't political, but he wasn't dismissive either. He'd work long hours at his internship, come home greasy and dead tired, and still help me with laundry while I talked about all the new concepts I was learning, like intersectionality or whatever drama was going on in my group chat. He always kept his opinions soft. Too soft, maybe. By 25, I had landed my first agency job. Social media manager, fast-growing company, remote friendly. I felt like I was ascending, finally becoming the woman I wanted to be. He, meanwhile, had settled into a city utilities job. Decent money, routine, hard hat, meal prepping Sundays, podcasts about mortgage rates. He'd bring up house hunting, want to talk about kids. I started feeling boxed in, like I was racing forward and he was planting roots. He'd say things like, "Let's start looking at places outside the city. Maybe closer to your parents?" And I'd stiffen thinking, God, am I really going to be barefoot in some hut by 30? I remember the shift. Subtle. It wasn't one fight. It was 1,000 quiet resentments. Him asking why I had to post bikini pics on Instagram when we were together. Me feeling like he was trying to control my voice. I remember that argument perfectly. I'd posted a photo from a beach trip with my coworkers. Nothing scandalous, just me in a two-piece, laughing with a drink in hand. He saw it that night and said quietly, "Do you really need to share that with everyone?" I rolled my eyes. "It's just a picture, Ethan." "Everyone posts vacation photos." "Yeah," he said, "but you're not everyone. You don't even like half the people who'll see it. So what? I should hide myself because it makes you uncomfortable." He sighed, rubbed the bridge of his nose. "No. I just don't get why you need strangers to see that side of you. I thought I was enough." That line hit me wrong. It's not about you. It's about me feeling confident. Why is that so threatening? He didn't yell, didn't accuse. He just got quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you feel worse than being shouted at. He went to bed early that night, and I lay awake scrolling through comments on the post, pretending they didn't mean anything, but they did. They always did. Him getting annoyed I worked late. Me snapping back that his 9-to-5 mindset wasn't my problem. I started hanging out more with girls from work, mostly single, mostly hyper-driven, mostly jaded by men. We'd go to happy hours, complain about dates, toast to staying free. I soaked it all in. One night, after a fight about something dumb, I think he asked if I could skip a girl's weekend to attend his cousin's wedding. I blurted out, "I'm tired of living like I'm already a wife when I'm not even engaged." He didn't argue. He just looked at me for a long time and said, "I think you're starting to believe love is beneath you." That stuck with me for days. Because maybe I was. I talked to Liv. My work friend who wore power suits and said things like, "Marriage is capitalism with better branding." She told me I was shrinking myself to keep Ethan comfortable, that he'd never catch up. Another friend sent me a link to a viral tweet. "Don't marry a man who sees your ambition as a threat." I didn't even know if Ethan did, but it was easier to believe he did than admit I didn't want him anymore. So I left. No cheating, no blowout, no betrayal, just quiet. I packed up my half of the apartment while he was at work. Left a letter. He texted once, "I hope you find whatever you're looking for," then went silent. I told everyone it was mutual, that I needed to find myself, that we were just on different paths, but deep down, I think I wanted him to fight for me, to tell me I was making a mistake, to chase me. He never did. Liv took me to a rooftop bar that weekend. We toasted with overpriced cocktails. She said, "You're glowing." That was the dead weight talking. And maybe it was, or maybe it was the last real thing I ever had. The first few months after leaving Ethan were loud. Dinners, drinks, new faces, endless plans. I told everyone I felt free, and I half believed it. I filled every night with something. Noise, movement, anything but silence. I started saying yes to everything. Work mixes, blind dates, last-minute weekend trips. Every man I met felt the same. Detached, restless, a little cold. Like they were all playing some unspoken game and I was late to the rules. At work, a new hire named Marcus joined our team. Late 30s, divorced, smart, dry sense of humor. He'd lived abroad for a few years, consulting in the Philippines and Thailand. People said he was old school, which in my office meant he actually held doors open and listened before speaking. We ended up eating lunch together a few times. I liked him, but not romantically. He had this grounded energy that reminded me uncomfortably of Ethan. One afternoon, while we were eating outside, the conversation drifted to dating. My co-worker Jenna was venting about men who ghost, and Marcus just laughed and said, "A lot of guys are done trying here. It's not worth it anymore." I asked what that even meant. He shrugged. Too much hostility? Too many people trying to one-up each other instead of connect? You'd be surprised how different it is in other countries. Jenna rolled her eyes. "Oh great, another passport, bro," she said. Marcus smiled, unfazed. "Call it whatever you want. Over there, women still like being women, and men get to be men without feeling guilty about it." I remember feeling a flash of irritation. So what? Women here are the problem? He took a sip of his coffee, calm as ever. Not saying that. But men go where they're wanted. Simple as that. I didn't respond, but it stayed with me. I'd heard of the passport bro thing online, usually framed as sad, bitter guys who couldn't handle strong women. But Marcus didn't seem bitter. If anything, he seemed peaceful. Like he'd already figured something out. I hadn't. I tried to challenge him. Wanted how? You think men aren't wanted here? He looked at me like I'd just proved his point. Most of the time, no. Not for who they are. Just for what they can provide. Status, money, validation. And when that runs out, so does the interest. I frowned. That's not fair. Women have expectations because we bring things too. It's not just about what men give. He nodded slowly. I know, but tell me something. When was the last time you met a guy who felt appreciated just for showing up as himself? Not for what he could do, or how he could impress you, just for being a decent man? I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. He continued, still in that steady, even tone. That's the difference. In other places, relationships still feel like a team. Here, it's a competition, and most guys are tired of competing with the person they're supposed to build with. There was no edge in his voice, no resentment, just quiet conviction, and that's what unsettled me most. The way he said it like it was simple math. Cause and effect. I forced a little laugh. You make it sound like women over there are perfect. He smiled faintly. No one's perfect. But they're softer. They appreciate effort instead of expecting it. And men respond to that. It's not about control, it's about balance. The way he said softer annoyed me, though I couldn't explain why. It felt like a criticism, but not a cruel one. More like a truth I didn't want to admit. So you'd rather date someone who just nods and agrees with you? No, he said, setting down his coffee. I'd rather be with someone who doesn't see me as an obstacle. That line stuck. It was delivered so gently, I almost missed the weight of it. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The cafe noise filled the silence, cups clinking, the low hum of conversation around us. He glanced out the window. You know, when I first came back to the States, I thought I'd missed out. The dating scene here seemed exciting, progressive, but after a few months, it just felt transactional. Everyone's guarding themselves, keeping score. He looked back at me, calm but direct. Maybe the reason people go abroad isn't because they can't handle strong women. Maybe it's because they're finally strong enough to stop fighting uphill. I didn't have a comeback. I just stared at him, pretending to check my phone. That night, I met Liv for dinner. She'd started seeing a guy casually, one of those emotionally unavailable types she always swore she'd fix. We sat at a crowded wine bar, venting about dating again. I told her about Marcus and what he'd said. She laughed. Men aren't done. They're just weak. They can't handle women who know their worth. I nodded, but half-heartedly, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized none of these strong women I knew seemed happy. Liv kept pretending she was fine with casual hookups, but she'd check her phone every 10 minutes, waiting for a text from the guy who hadn't called her in a week. She'd play it off, saying she was keeping her options open. But I could see the nervous scrolling in her eyes. Taylor, another friend, was on her third situationship of the year, this one with a married man who told her his marriage was basically over. She'd say things like, "At least I'm not settling," and we'd all nod, even though none of us believed it. And then there was Jenna. Loud, confident, always the first to post "men are trash" memes. That night, she'd texted in our group chat, "Just did my egg freezing consult. The nurse said it's best before 35. I'm officially depressed." She added a crying emoji, but there was nothing funny about it. I stared at her message longer than I meant to, because suddenly, all our late night "we don't need men" talks felt like bravado, like armor, and every one of us was quietly panicking beneath it. Meanwhile, Ethan hadn't reached out once, not a word. I told myself that was good, that I didn't need him. But sometimes, when my apartment felt too quiet, I'd wonder what he was doing. Then one night, something small set me off. I was on the train home after work, sitting across from a young couple, probably mid-20s. They were both in cheap office clothes, sharing earbuds, watching something on his phone. She leaned against his shoulder, half asleep. When their stop came, he helped her up, carried both their bags, and kissed her forehead before they got off. Nothing glamorous, just gentle, simple. And it hit me. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had something that easy. Everything in my world now felt like a negotiation or performance. When I got home, I sat on my couch, replaying Marcus's words in my head. Men go where they're wanted. The thought annoyed me, but also lingered. Out of curiosity, or maybe defensiveness, I opened my laptop and started searching. Men leaving the country to find wives. At first, it was just curiosity, but the results were endless. Videos, interviews, entire channels. Men sitting in quiet cafes abroad, talking about how dating outside the US felt normal again. They used words I hadn't heard in ages: respect, kindness, peace. It should have made me roll my eyes. It didn't. One video showed a guy around my age, maybe early 30s, cooking with his wife in the Thailand. The kitchen was small, dimly lit, a fan humming in the background. They were laughing over some burnt rice. She playfully smacked his arm, he kissed her cheek, and she blushed. They looked ordinary. No filters, no self-help slogans, just contentment. I stared at the screen, thinking, they look happy in a way I can't even picture anymore. I slammed the laptop shut, told myself it was propaganda, that those women were oppressed, that he'd probably get bored. But I didn't believe it. Not fully. The next day, Marcus passed me in the hallway at work. You seemed quiet yesterday. Everything all right? I forced a smile. Just tired. He nodded, slow and knowing. Yeah. Everyone's chasing something lately. No one seems to know what, though I don't know why. But that hit harder than it should have. Because for the first time, I couldn't tell if I was chasing freedom or running from peace. Honestly, that was how life was like for some time, and before I knew it, 5 years slipped by just like that. My job had grown, the titles changed, the salary doubled, but the rest of my life stayed strangely flat. I dated in between, enough to collect stories but not memories. The group chat still existed, though it had thinned. Taylor moved states, Jenna was busy planning another egg freezing round. Liv had married and divorced in the space of 18 months. Sometimes I'd think about Ethan, but only in passing, like a chapter you skim past in a book you don't want to finish. Then one assignment changed that. Our company landed a travel partnership project with a resort network in Thailand. I was chosen to lead the campaign. 2 weeks on site, photo shoots, client dinners, a little team building on the side. Everyone congratulated me. It was the kind of opportunity I used to dream about. Yet the night before my flight, sitting among half-packed suitcases, I felt an odd hollowness. I told myself it was nerves. The first few days were a blur of meetings and humidity. The resort sat on the edge of a jungle-lined beach, all bamboo walkways and salt-sweet air. On the 4th morning, our hosts arranged a guided tour through the nearby villages to give us authentic content. We gathered in the lobby, coffee in hand, when the local coordinator introduced our guide. Please welcome Ethan. He'll be leading today's trip. For a second, I thought I'd misheard. Then he stepped forward. He looked older, in the good way. Tanned, lean, confident in a linen shirt and rolled sleeves. His voice carried easily over the small crowd. Welcome everyone. We'll start with the boats in about 15 minutes. He caught my eye, paused, and in that half-second recognition, flickered. He smiled politely, not surprised, not uncomfortable, just steady. The group moved toward the docks. I hung back until he drifted near me. Hey, he said softly. Been a while? Yeah, I managed. Didn't expect to run into you here. He laughed once, low. Me neither. Life's funny like that. How long have you been here? I asked. 4 years, he said. Started with a volunteer project after traveling. One thing led to another. Now I help run this place. That's amazing, I said, and meant it, though the word came out thin. You look happy? I am, he said. Got married a couple years back. We have a little girl. She's 3. The words landed like stones in water. No splash, just a slow sinking. I smiled too brightly. That's great, Ethan. Really? He studied me a moment, kind but detached. How's life treating you? Oh, you know. Busy, I said, automatic. Work's good. He nodded. You were always good at chasing what you wanted. I guess. I tried to laugh. Still figuring out if I even know what that is? He gave a small, almost sympathetic smile. That's all right. Most people don't until they stop running. Before I could answer, another tourist called his name and he excused himself, slipping easily back into his role. I watched him move among the guests, switching between English and Thai, cracking jokes, pointing out landmarks. Everyone gravitated toward him. Later, at lunch, I saw him sitting under a canopy with a woman and a child. His wife, tiny, sun-tanned, wearing a loose cotton dress. Their daughter sat on his lap, smearing mango across his shirt while he laughed. Locals stopped by to greet them, calling him by a Thai nickname. He looked completely at home, part of the rhythm of the place. I wanted to hate it, to tell myself he'd settled, traded ambition for simplicity, but there was nothing small about the way he carried himself. He looked fulfilled in a way I'd never managed. That afternoon, I went to the resort cafe to grab a drink before a meeting. It was half empty, just the sound of ceiling fans and ocean wind. She was there, Ethan's wife, standing at the counter with their little girl on her hip, trying to order in halting English. The child dropped a toy elephant and it rolled to my feet. I bent to pick it up. "Here," I said, handing it back. She smiled. "Open. Easy." "Thank you," she said, her accent soft but clear. "You work with Ethan today, yes?" "Yeah. Small world," I managed. She nodded, adjusting her daughter. "He told me last night he saw someone from long time ago. He was happy. Said you helped him learn patience when he was young. That caught me off guard." "He said that?" She laughed lightly. "He say you were very strong. He used to be shy. Now he talk too much." The little girl tugged at her hair, and she leaned down, whispering something that made the child giggle. Then she looked back at me. "He is kind," she said simply. "Kindest man I ever know. When I come here first time, I was scared of everything. He make it home, I smiled, or tried to. You're lucky." She shook her head gently. "We both lucky." She thanked me again and walked off, barefoot on the wooden floor, the child clutching her shoulder. I watched them disappear toward the garden path, sunlight flashing off the little toy in the girl's hand. That night, back in my hotel room, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling fan hummed, the ocean outside whispered, and all I could hear was his voice. Most people don't know what they want until they stop running. I opened my laptop, half out of habit. My reflection stared back in the dark screen, tired eyes, tight mouth, a stranger wearing my life. For the first time in years, I closed it without logging in. I sat there until sunrise, listening to the waves, wondering when peace had stopped feeling like success.